just like honey, sweet to taste on burning lips. Warm and live beneath the water, feeling icy fingertips. Soothing nectar to my body, wash the image from my eyes. Dirty streets of hungry people, drink the water, dry your eyes. First one look at the reflections, listen to the music made. Drinking water's ease the mind, thoughts of you begin to fade.
The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
That'll be interesting. Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand, and you're correct. This is Divided We Stand on Thursday evening, right? Special edition. So we hope that you have joined us. If you have, thank you very much. This is Divided We Stand on YouTube. We are not a monetized channel, so we're not looking for anything from you, but we are looking for you to join us and commiserate. And hopefully, through our small efforts, in the end, we'll have in some way helped elect Kamala Harris. And we'll be talking about Kamala Harris tonight. Also, if you're unfamiliar with our Facebook group page, you can find us on Facebook and just look for Divided We Stand on Facebook. I don't think there are too many Divided We Stands on Facebook, but it is very, very popular, and we ask that you join us there if you are on Facebook. The main thing is we want to have interaction between the members and us. We are not taking a role like we are the supreme leaders. No, we are simply people who are trying to facilitate an honest conversation about current politics in the United States right now. And it's been one hell of 8 years or so. As if it wasn't bad enough when George Bush was president. But in any case, it's time to begin. And who not better than joining me would be our David Price, journalist, writer, podcaster, troublemaker, everything all wrapped into one. That's our Dave Price. Dave, where are you? Okay, here he is. I shall make him appear. And there he is. Dave, how you doing?
Okay, Brian. Okay, Brian. Okay, Brian. Listen,
Anything happened this week that we need to
well,
talk
not,
about?
a lot of stuff. That's why we're doing this show. Of course, the debate and the after effects of the debate. But the way the way this election is going, there'll be something tomorrow that'll be as big as that. Just the way things are going. I do have a question. I heard last Sunday there was some kind of Southern guy or something on the show. And what was that about?
Yeah, this basically he was. I don't know if he was a hillbilly or a hick. I'm not sure the nuanced difference, but he had one strange accent, and he seemed to
Mm-hmm.
be. He was either a deep South redneck, or he was somebody who, in reality, hates rednecks and Southerners so much that he had to
Hmm.
act like a
Yeah,
Southerner.
I missed that. I got the show.
It's his best
sorry.
accent, I hear too.
I apologize. I got to the show about a half hour late. So, but I heard about it.
Oh, it was.
Hey,
I know who it was. It's Walter Ego. Was that it?
who?
Walter Ego. Your Walter Ego.
Who's Walter Ego?
Oh, I don't know. The second guy. Maybe there's two
It would
parts
be-
of David Price.
Okay. One of the things, yes, the guy, I would have done it last night, but Brian had a commitment. What he does is he does stretching on Wednesday. He feels that he's short. He isn't short by any stretch of the imagination. So, but he tries to stretch many of his body parts. I'll leave the ones to your imagination, which ones he's trying to stretch. But
Here we go. There's sordid bullshit here.
there we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. All right. I'll do the big announcement first.
All right. What's the big
And then
announcement, dude?
Okay, so you could be thinking about, because you get to start tonight on your take on the debate, but I will say not a take on the debate, but something different. And I pleased to announce tonight that officially Divided We Stand has a sister group, a brother group, a sibling group, I guess would be the best way to do that, formed in Washington, D.C., called In Black and White, talking about the issues in a divided America. There's that divide again. And you might know one of the guys, or two people running it. One of those guys is Dave Price. You might know him. And anyway, we had our first, I guess, kickoff. And we did it at it's kind of a bookstore, cafe, bar, left-wing hangout.
Any strip club involved in that, Dave?
Nope. This is sheer.
I'm actually quite shocked that there isn't, but that's,
None whatsoever. And so, what we did was we had our kick. And when you do anything for the first time, you wonder. We did have some help. Busboys and Poets was very kind to allow us to debut there, and so they took up some of the advertising. And the co-founder with me, Hosea Huggins, he's I guess you would call him a black entrepreneur and a social activist in D.C., has a pretty big following of things. And the Democratic National Committee recognized this, and they did advertising for us. But anyway, about the debate, I did not. It was a different feel for me because we didn't know how many people would show up for this debate party. And we opened the doors at 7, and at 5 after 7, there were 2 people. And you know that feeling. We're looking now. Sometimes we look at our count and say, "Oh my God, nobody's here." But it's even more glaring when you're doing something live. But it turned out really well. The place holds, the room that we were in held 80 people, and we had 80 in there, and we had 50 overflow. So we had 130 people watching the debate, and it was very interesting. Even though I knew very few people in the room, I knew some late, by meeting them there. It was really interesting, and I think I would urge everybody to do that from time to time. Now, my wife chose not to go, which was smart. Because she wanted to really hear the debate. So she and a friend watched it together, and that's one way to do it. We're going to get to that tonight. We're going to talk a lot about barbecue before we go, and unfortunately, it's been Donald Trump just before we went on the air added some information to that, so we'll be talking about that. But anyway, what was interesting is watching the reaction of 130 people, of which 130 people were rooting against Donald Trump. And it was just a fascinating thing to watch. But I have some feelings about the debate, but Brian, let's start with you. You watched it. I understand that you watched it with your wife,
Right.
and so you were the kind of the opposite of what I was doing. Watching
Right.
it with.
I actually, as I had planned, Ronnie and I had planned to pop some popcorn, and we were going to sit back later and watch a movie. Was not worried at all because, first of all, I don't think he is, and he wasn't prepared. He just does the same thing, and if you just stick to facts and if you've got a little bit of guts, you come back at him here and there, you'll be fine, and that's essentially what happened. Now, as I told you, you didn't see the beginning of it, but the very first question when she responded, she seemed uptight, and I was worried because I thought she was going to do the same thing that Biden did, where he was trying to get everything out in the first 30 seconds. And he was looking calm and collected, and I said, this isn't a good start. And it really wasn't, in my opinion, because you need to show some cool. And she, and of all people, the prosecutor who's used to arguing her point in front of large numbers of people, I couldn't believe it. So in the very beginning, I think that for the first 2 minutes, I think she lost the debate. But then after that, everything went our way, and she calmed down. And he got hyper and he was in hysterics half the time. So I think just the imagery that we saw, and we talk about imagery, just looking at his reaction was a big loss for him because he looked like he was out of control. Now maybe that doesn't translate into any of his voters leaving, but it certainly will leave an impression. And I think unless he has a debate with Fox so they can jump on her, you won't see another debate because he knows he can't win. The only way he can win is if other people get in the debate and defeat her in some way, try to get her off guard. So anyway, that's the way I saw it, Dave. I think just very general recollection. She won the debate, no doubt about it.
Well, I think what I was looking at was I felt that she had to do three things. Number one, she had to introduce herself to America. Now, you're steeped in politics. I'm steeped in politics. Most of the people who watch our show are steeped in politics, but it isn't. There really are people who are still making up their mind. There really are people who just, politics. Oh, it's a presidential race. Maybe I better look at this. And look, we all know. What was it? What's the famous saying about the vice president? It's not worth a warm bucket of piss. It's not, it's not a job where you come to the fore. And so I think, number one, she had to introduce herself to America. And I thought she did a good job of that. But also, one of the knocks, and there are some people who this would be important, she really hadn't laid out, people felt she hadn't laid out her policies. And she really had. And she did a pretty good job of that, I thought. But her best job, there was no question. That's where the prosecutor in her comes in. She baited Trump, and Trump fell every single time. Now, if you go back historically,
by the way, for a second, Dave, on that, because specifically the one area she talked about the crowd size. For most people, nobody would give a shit. I don't care at a football game whether it was 47,000 people or 70,000 people.
Right.
People would care about that, concessions or whatever. But that shouldn't matter. But to him, it really does. It really does matter to him.
Well, we knew that. I mean, his first egregious act as president was to claim that he had the largest inaugural crowd ever. Right. And indeed, it was the smallest in recent memory. Okay. Certainly, Obama was like, look, I live 3 metro stops from Washington, D.C., so I'm on the National Mall a lot. And Obama's crowd, for those who know about the National Mall, it stretched from right in front of the Capitol all the way back to the Lincoln Memorial. And that's a long way. That's a lot of people. But anyway, so crowd sizes have always been...
And there will be a lot of people if Kamala Harris is inaugurated.
No question about that. And so the other place that I think she really won, which is kind of tied into the idea of Trump falling for the bait. If you go back, the first modern debate is the famous Kennedy-Nixon debate. And this is not made up. This is not false news. It's exactly what happened. Nixon being kind of the macho guy and TV being the new thing, right? He would not wear any makeup. And three things happened. Not apparently, he did. He had the type of beard where they said he literally needed to shave 3 times a day. Sometimes, you know what I mean, like to be clean shaven, you know, by noon and by 4. And so he had this, and then he had, because he didn't wear any makeup, he looked very pale and washed out. And then the third thing was, as nerves can happen, I think, well, I'll come back to Kamala and her nerves in a minute because I think he raised a good point. But anyway, he had sweat on his upper lip. That's what people saw. Now Kennedy, on the other hand, everybody thought, oh, he wasn't. One of his illnesses, and he pretty much disagreed. He was with the exception of FDR and his polio, JFK was probably the second most physically disabled president in the history of America.
Terrible back problems, as far as I remember.
And he was taking drugs and all that. But anyway, he had this thing that his skin went to a nice, ruddy, natural tan, even though he didn't have it. So he comes out. Now, when they did the surveys, almost to 3-1, maybe 4-1, people listened to it on the radio, said Richard Nixon won. The reverse was true on television. And so the modern age of TV was born. And I think where Kamala really maybe had her night the brightest was in her looks that she gave Trump. And the looks that he in turn gave. Not to her. He didn't know where to look, right? And
his eyes, by the way, I don't know if you noticed it. I mean, maybe just me. Mm-hmm. But when he had that stare going, his eyes started moving from left to right a bit. Well, that was weird.
Well, I think, again, Tim Waltz hit it on the money. Donald Trump is weird. I mean, everything he does is weird. Okay? I mean, it really is. Unfortunately, it's dangerous weird, not funny weird.
Right.
And as J.D. Vance, it's almost as if, I was thinking today, but if I were writing this out, it's almost as if Vance was a plant to destroy Trump.
I mean, he's done nothing to help him so far. Everything he's done, he's not even part of it now.
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, so you have this debate, and I picked a couple of my high points that I really liked. I think my favorite was when she said, "And this former president." That will be good. That's the greatest pause in presidential history, because everybody filled in what they wanted.
They wanted to say. This asshole, this shithead,
and you've seen the videos out there doing it now. They're hilarious. And I really wondered what she was going to say. And anti-Gaia, I wouldn't be surprised. It's certainly been rumored all along. And Trump would be the type, even though he is anti-drug and he's anti-alcohol, at least now, because of his brother, it said he would be the type that wouldn't say Adderall's a drug. He would make that distinction that if it's legal for somebody, even though I'm abusing it or whatever, so it wouldn't surprise me. So I thought that was really a great moment for Kamala, and I think I would have to say for me that was like the highlight. Now, of course, let's get to the focus. We've got the cats and dogs and eating and Haitians in Springfield. What's your take on that, Brian? I mean, what's he trying to do?
When he said that, look, first of all, it was getting more and more strange. It was so bizarre that I said, is he? He's ruining himself with this. I mean, it's just he sounds like a crazy man who's just being ready to be taken away. It made no sense to me. Of course, nothing was making sense because he's avoiding every question and whatnot. But that to me, I was shocked that he even did that because he was really putting himself in jeopardy by doing that, because it's just something that, again, it's more of the sounds and the way he did it, bringing dogs and cats. I mean, that it's just out of nowhere. It's like saying, I hope McDonald's doesn't sell spaghetti and blankets or something. It was bizarre.
Well, I think, again, who we had to have to blame for that is J.D. Vance. Because what happened was, that we never know where these things come from, but indirectly.
It was from Ohio. We know he's from Ohio.
It was Springfield, Ohio. Now, Springfield, Ohio is supposedly the home of the Simpsons, right? They come from Springfield. middle, and it's the middle of the country. They've never identified it, but Springfield, Ohio, has kind of been like Bridgeton is the home of Batman, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is somebody, just playing with that, put that story out there, and Vance jumps on it and starts promoting it, and Trump. And did you hear what I really like? What he said, when ABC kind of called him on it and said, we've talked to city officials and there's none of that. And he said, but I saw it on TV. And maybe a city manager would say that. It's like you saw it on TV, so that makes it true.
Right.
But wouldn't you, Brian, wouldn't you think, after taking that pounding that he took for that, you would back off that, right? Wouldn't you think? I mean,
absolutely.
I would. No, he goes to Arizona today. As I said, he just concluded before we went on the air, and he added to it. Not only are they eating the cats, and eating the dogs, and eating the pets, they're now eating the geese in the park. They're stealing the geese for the park.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave.
Sure.
I mean, we know that it's all bullshit, but perhaps do you have any inkling that this man might be so screwed up that he actually believes all this shit?
I ask myself that question all the time, and I really don't know. I mean, I am.
Because that's scary. Because then he's actually very sick.
I am fascinated with Donald Trump because I've never encountered anything like him. Global, no sleep till November. That's a lot of people are going to fall into that. But I was thinking, and so now, some of the proof that what they're saying is not true. One is, as I mentioned, a city manager came out. I don't know if sometimes I don't know enough of their government. Normally you would think that would be the mayor, right, who would come forward and make. But in some places it's the city manager who becomes the spokesperson. So whatever. And he said absolutely none. We have no reports, no police reports, nothing of animals being whatever. Now, there are some people claiming to be from Springfield who said that's not true, my pet. But see, you can't believe that stuff. You can't believe that stuff. So you have to kind of realize. So then I thought this was the most interesting. A factory owner came out and said, no, we have, I was 80, it was under 100, like 80 or 90 Haitian workers there. He said, they're amazing. They come to work. They're not drunk. They're not on drugs. They actually do their job. We're not used to that. So what's he saying? The people before them weren't doing the job, and the Haitians are.
And
right?
by the way, I don't know if you saw, there was a tweet by J.D. Vance. He said something about, if immigrants come, we will not be. This is why we're not the greatest.
Absolutely,
and we are, and that's the funny thing,
Number one, there's two things wrong, Brian. I agree with that. Two things wrong. That's it. Number one, we are still the greatest country in the world, as damaged, as bad as we are. Okay, not something we should shout about because we have so much more to do. However, and who makes it that way? The immigrants.
Right.
Do you realize? And what's interesting about the immigrant experience is we're getting the best. When I say the best, we're getting the people who come who will fill the jobs that Americans, for whatever reason, economics or whatever, do not do. Find me a landscape firm. Find me a construction firm. Find me a restaurant. Find me food preparation. And the list goes on and on and on. And it's not just Mexicans. There's different, here's a Haitians group taking these jobs and doing well. So you got that. So you got the city map. But here's the one that really bothers me, Brian. All this started apparently, or one thing started, there was a Haitian immigrant who was driving a car and he lost control of his car and he hit a school bus, right? In Springfield. And the school bus driver, couldn't react and the bus turned over. And in the course of this accident, an 11-year-old boy was killed. Okay. Mm-hmm. Tragedy, of course. I'm not excusing accidents happen. The driver of the car was not drunk, but obviously didn't have his car under control. He's been found guilty already of murder. Not deliberate, but of fatally taking a life. But the father comes out, and he now has said, he's called J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. I look at this quote here just a second. Yeah, morally bankrupt politicians. And basically he says, stop using my son as this reason and quit. Just take, who was it said that one time? Don't you ever put my name in your mouth. Like, that's kind of what he was doing. He said, I'm agreeing that, we have to relive this every day now. And what I really liked was the comment he ended, and I would urge people to go look at the whole thing. Can't do the whole thing here. But he said, you're exploiting an 11-year-old's death.
Right.
And that 11-year-old was my son. What he's doing. And he said, this hate, your hate spewing, yours and your followers are, just leave us alone. But what I liked was his final comment. He said, you know what? In order to live like Aiden, which was his son's name, you need to accept everyone. He was a light, and he would never act like you. And I thought, what? If they lack anything, and they lack everything,
right.
But the number one lack is any semblance of any kind human trait. Now, they exhibit all the other ones: anger, fear, frustration, inability to process and reason, but none of the positives. So you've got this situation. And again, Trump, but remember, Brian and everyone out there, that Trump had a biological father. Okay, we know that. I mean, he wasn't hatched. But his father apparently was just an SOB, especially to the brother who had the alcohol and problems, and drug problems. But anyway, I'm sure, and they farmed him out. He went to military school. They didn't keep Donnie around. But anyway, and his mother is just, I hate to do, but they played that game too. She is just, in her older age, she just looked scary. I mean, she was just a scary looking woman. Right. She maybe she was the nicest person on the planet.
And he had great praise on the David Letterman show. I saw a clip where he was saying what great parents he had. He lived a normal life of a kid. That's bullshit.
Well, of course. I mean, normal, but anyway. None
of us went to military school.
No, well, that's the other thing. So
that's what. But by the way, when you can't behave, that's what's called a juvenile delinquent. You never know how to learn how to behave.
Well, you know what's interesting, Brian, and it's a great point. That is a great point you just made, which is so rare. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, do you think about this for a moment, everyone? Isn't there a great parallel between a rich juvenile delinquent and a kid raised on the streets? You see, one has too much and doesn't get any of the good things, right? But has the money, so they get the entitlement, as Trump does, and this belief. And then the other side.
But more, it's always the idea of more, though. They want.
That's
more.
What I'm saying. That's it. So, and that's not to say every rich kid is bad and every poor kid is bad or good. It's just interesting to me that as the longer you live in life, the more value there is to the middle. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, a lot of America now that we don't have that. We have extremes. Right. But anyway, so that was one thing in the debate. I think we did that. Now, of course, it being the MAGA people. Thanks, T-Bone. Welcome to you too. What happens is, now, of course, we got to have some conspiracy theories about the aftermath. I'm talking about the aftermath now. So what happens? Have you been following the earring controversy at all, Brian?
Whose earring?
Kamala's.
No.
Okay. It's developing now. And remember, I spent a lot of my time on not the dark web, but the dark side of the force, Truth Social and X, and because I want to find things that are just nuts. So anyway, there's a large contingent now of MAGA claiming that Kamala had wired earrings that had a microphone in them, and she was receiving coaching from the sidelines. Now, where does that come from? It's interesting. There's always this little kernel of something around there. So apparently, doing my research, I found out that last year, there was a thing called Audio Earrings Nova HI, and they would be sold in a Kickstarter, and they were earrings that were basically a receiver. So you take that, and she had the earrings that did resemble, the word is resemble, them, right? But of course, she didn't, it wasn't, it couldn't, you could look at it and see that clearly, unless there's some technology we don't know about, alien technology, it wasn't. But of course, now, how does that generate? One person put it out, and by the end of the next morning, right after the debate, that one instance had been viewed 5 million times. And how many of those 5 million reach? You know, and this is what I mean. It's absolutely
the way that they attack, but it's very effective.
It's just absolutely absurd, because part of the idea of being a human being, I think, is you have to have. Well, you and I've talked about this for 52 years or whatever, however long we've been together. You have to have a balance of logic and emotion. But if you're going to have an overabundance of one, if you're going to have an overabundance of one, it should be logic and reason. That's what separates us. You know, it makes us. That's where we get our better angels from, for the most part. But anyway, you got that. You got that going. Now, another line from back. Yeah, mine too, T-Bone. Back to something that Trump said, and I think will live in political life forever. I have a concept of a plan. What the hell? Now, what bothers me about that is, first of all, what does it mean? You either have a plan or you don't, right? I mean, a concept. I mean, I can have a concept for a book I'm going to write.
He was cornered, and he had to do the next best things. But they don't have any plan.
I'm going to tell you something. This is, I'd love to hear from the audience, please, if you can help me with this. That is not a phrase he would use, I don't think. That's, as weird as that sounds, it's pretty heavy, right? In a way. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's also heavy. A concept of a plan. So I think that was planted. You know, somebody said to use that. So he's getting, but by the same token, we know that he doesn't take any advice. But apparently if he does, which I think that was given to him, he takes bad advice, which I guess is good. One last thing before I leave what happened in the debate too. And this was minor, but I think it is major in certain ways. Okay. Do you remember in when was it? The first debate, a debacle, of course, for Joe Biden. But do you remember when Trump, and I wish I knew this number, and shit, I said it the other day and I forgot. But anyway, I'm going to say 18. When they said, you know, calling soldiers, you know, losers and suckers. And he said, that's been debunked. That's not true. I've got 19 people. 19 people.
Right.
Who said it? I didn't say it. If I were a journalist, before I answered this question, I said, and he did it twice, not once, but twice in that debate. I would just said, sir, you said you have 19 people. Could you name them right now for us? That's all. Well, he did another one of those that I would have asked this night. Remember when he talked about you know, killing babies after they were born? Right. And he cited, the first time he cited the governor of West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. The former governor, he said, or whatever.
Former governor. And then the next time it was the former governor of Virginia. Which I would just ask him, Mr. Trump.
Which one?
Which one? Now, I know which one it was. It was totally taken out of context, but it was Governor, the governor here in Virginia. But it didn't have anything to do with what he was saying.
Right.
So you know, so you got this stuff going on. Now, what else comes out good? I don't want to overrate things, but whoever is advising Kamala, two things are happening. She's getting pretty good advice, and she's following it, and they were there. Now, you know, Taylor Swift comes out immediately and endorses her, something we've been waiting for. Now, you can say all you want that doesn't mean anything, but that's not true. There are some people Taylor Swift is as near a deity among her fans as you could be. She's almost as revered by the Swifties as Trump is by the maggots. Really. I mean, it's that kind of thing. And so it does mean something. And she comes out And, when she endorses her, but notice what she did. She didn't say, and you should too, she said register and vote. Mm-hmm. And let me get my numbers here right so I don't quote wrong numbers. By morning, 337,826. So 337,826 people had registered to vote through the link she provided on her website. That's not even 24 hours. Now you say,
great.
Okay, I said that's not like, well now, Auntie Guy is absolutely right. It's like I said, that was just with 24 hours. Who knows now?
But will it even matter in Georgia if now they have 3 assholes on that board?
Well, we'll get to that, Brian. And I mean, when I say I'm not putting it, you keep harping on. I mean, you should keep saying that. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's absolutely
because that's the bottom line. She can get all the votes you want, but if you don't count the votes, they won't mean anything.
I'm not going to dismiss what you're saying because you're absolutely correct. However, I am going to say this: the more votes she gets, the harder it will make it to overturn it. That's all. That's
right.
All. Not saying there will be every attempt in the world to do it. And not saying they can't do it. I'm not saying they definitely will try. The other thing I thought was really interesting, because it was a subtle dig, it brings it back. That's not all she said when she did her endorsement. She also warned people about the dangers of AI. And I thought that was really interesting because she's a victim of that. You realize that completely, there's no way that Taylor Swift is going to endorse Donald Trump. Is he that fucking stupid to say that, look, I got Taylor Swift? No, you didn't, you bonehead. And then it makes him look like a fool. He should have just left that alone. I mean, that was somebody put that together. Leave that damn thing alone. Because now what Trump is not realizing or isn't doing is he's got all his people, Brian. There aren't going to be too many more Dick Cheneys and Liz Cheneys and those kinds of people. They're not. What he has to win, though, I don't think he has enough. He can't win with 40% of the American public. He can't.
But he can win with 6 out of 9 Supreme Court justices.
Again, you're absolutely right. But as I've said before, one step at a time.
By the way, and this, I know you will agree with this. Just like last time, he did everything possible in his flow chart. If this doesn't work, I'm going to this, to this, to this.
And
led right
Brian,
up.
And Brian, they have more in
January 6th.
What was the arrows in their quiver? I guess is a bad analogy, but I'll say that they have more arrows. They've had a practice. They've had a practice run. They've had a practice run of violence. January 6th was a practice run of violence. Now, I don't know that everybody was aware of what was going on, but there were people, who knew that was, an attack, et cetera, et cetera. And we know for a fact that over here in my neighborhood, hold up, they had weapons here ready to go over there, but they never got them there because, it didn't turn out the way that they thought they would. But anyway, back to this AI, and that's something else. We have to just keep constantly going. Now, once in a while, not in defense of Donald Trump, but again, everything being taken out of context. There was a place, and I missed this one. I missed this one completely. But apparently at some point in the debate, he said the phrase, "she put out." Right?
That I don't remember. I don't remember.
No, I don't either. But I mean, I saw it. It was there. And of course, people were jumping onto that like he was sexually. No, right. I looked at the context, and it was just like, I put out a paper on. I mean, so we don't need, I guess what I'm saying to our side, we don't need to be low like they are. We just need to hit them back with what we already have. That's all. And, I kind of like that. Now, back to your buddy, J.D. Vance. So Vance this week does a couple things. He should be out on like, the man is just weird. Now, how many people do you know that would be staying at a luxury hotel? We know many, right? And then they would go swimming, and this is a photo op. And then, Brian, you should get to this one, but I'll just finish my thought here. And so he goes swimming in the swimming pool, and the photo op is Secret Service surrounding the swimming pool. Mm-hmm. Okay? He's the only person in the swimming pool, and guess what? He has his T-shirt on. Now, in the modern age, okay, that's not such a bad thing because, cancer and you're seeing more people do that. Okay? So it's not like 25 years ago, but it's still and people just jumped on that. that's weird. Everything he does is weird. But where he really, I think, messed up this week is his quote about Taylor Swift. I don't know if you saw that. And
He said she's going to lose her market or something.
Yes, there were. Well, he said that, but before he said that, you're absolutely right. He said this: I don't think many people are going to be influenced. Now gets the good part by a billionaire celebrity who I think is disconnected from the interests and the problems of most Americans. He just described the guy he's running with.
He project as usual.
It's like Jesus. If I was Trump, I think I would have paid one of the Secret Service to hold his head underwater, or something. Now, there was a lot of talk that Vance would be replaced. And I don't think he will now. I mean, I think it is absolutely too late, unless they could find something on him or, could convince him to step down. But then we've got other people in consider. We've got Robert Kennedy is on the team now. So what does Robert Kennedy do? Did you see the memes out on him? Because he supposedly ate meat and did all this.
Right.
They're it's great. Cats, dogs. Where are they? Where are they? Tell me where they are. I love barbecued dogs. It's like, so you got this other wacko, and if that's good enough, let's bring the man we're going to create a new cabinet position for.
Right.
Elon Musk. And Elon comes out and says, okay, I mean, think about this. This is the world's richest man. He comes out and he owns X, which, he puts all kinds of shit on there that isn't true. But he says, okay, Taylor, you won. I'll give you a baby, my baby, and a cat. Let's do that one again. Taylor, you won. I'll give you my baby and a cat. Okay. So now everybody starts creating social media for that. So what they did is they took the most unflattering picture you could find of Elon Musk. He looks like a fat blob of nothing. And and Travis Kelce next to him. And the line is, I don't think Taylor's going to have much trouble figuring out who she wants to father her child.
Right.
And then it went on and on. Where they made this up. I don't think Travis actually did this, but it's just kind of funny. He said, listen, Musk, I'm 6'5". I can kick your ass through 47 states. Shut your mouth. So, again, it's like, and my favorite, and ladies and gentlemen, this is my favorite of all this week. You've got Laura Loomer. Now, do you know much about Laura Loomer? Right?
Only that I keep seeing in Twitter, she's the one who's giving advice to Trump.
She's like, I don't know, an evil Svengali.
I can't imagine him really taking anybody's advice.
I think he would take Laura's advice for this reason. I think he admires her because she has no concept of truth either. And there's another point I want to make on that too. But also, so Loomer comes out with all, I mean, I don't, if you want to get ill, but if you can handle it, I mean, go either Truth Social or X and see what she said. I mean, she was one of the first to claim that 9/11 was not real. So Trump goes to a 9/11 ceremony on, 2 days ago, right? And do you know who he took as a special guest? Laura Loomer. You could not have found worse unless you dug up bin Laden and brought him with you.
Right.
Right? I mean, what an insult. But it gets a little tricky now. Because not apparently, I've seen the photos. There are photos of Trump getting a little handy with Laura at Mar-a-Lago. So the report is now, and I'd say don't report rumors. I'm not reporting this as a rumor, is that Laura has replaced Melania as the apple of Donald's eye. She certainly does have the Mar-a-Lago look. That's certainly true. But here's the best part, right, of all this. So, I have this kind of theory that in the end, evil eats itself. I really do believe that. I mean, you could ask, well, why?
Right. That's why even if they do win, eventually they'll kill each other. But we have to suffer because of it.
And that's my point. Why did all the innocent people have to die in the Holocaust for Hitler to eat himself. I mean, so
Right.
but I don't but whatever. So now the big cat fight. Oh man, I can't wait for it's coming. Oh, I know I have to wait, sir. Laura Loomer versus Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right, I saw that. Yeah, that's weird.
But no, it's not
They're
because
both kind of like vying for attention.
I think yeah, they are exactly. And poor Lauren Boebert was left out this week.
Right.
And April Guilfoyle is just
I
running
guess
around.
she's got to go to the movie theater and do something pretty
Yeah,
wild.
exactly.
To
But what
get back.
I loved Laura Loomer. She's just so vile, so funny. So this is what the Republican Party does now. So Laura Loomer's interviewed about Marjorie Taylor Greene's, and she said, "No, she's just a bitch." She says she's spreading truth, but all she's spreading is her legs. Let me do that one again. She says she's spreading truth, but all she's doing is spreading her legs. And now I can't get the image of Marjorie Taylor Greene spreading her legs out of my mind. That's Marty. That's no. I don't think so. I think Laura would kind of like that. And what it's based on the research that I did. And I'm not talking about doing hours and hours, but looked at it in the pictures and stuff. Where a lot of this is coming from is there's a couple pictures of him kind of fondling, or not. One is like he's touching her ass, the other has his arm around her. But Trump. I mean, who knows? Well, we'll be seeing more of Melania in the weeks to come, because of course her book is coming out. I'm assuming, Brian, you're going to rush to read that. I would assume, correct?
I don't read many books these days because I'm so freaking busy. But
Not
I
that
certainly
one.
wouldn't read that. Let me answer
Yeah, I want
question.
you to get
All right. So first of all,
put it back up, Brian. Can you put it back up so everybody
Yeah.
can see it? Because I thought it was a great question.
yeah, he's basically saying. First of all, what she said was perfect. She said she supports Israel. She doesn't want to see the deaths. We've got to have a ceasefire, but we need to have the hostages released. So everything's fair game there. It's complete logic. It's the same thing as Biden. And then I know you mentioned something about, are we afraid they're going to alienate the Jewish population? Well, it's actually not a problem. 85% of Jews will vote for Kamala Harris. If you look at the Christian vote, that's the one you got to worry about, quite frankly. The Christian vote's not going to be 85% 15. The Christian vote's going to be 50-50. And most of that being at 50-50 is because of the African-American Christian vote. So that's what we should worry about. Don't worry about the Jewish vote. It will not be alienated. The Jews will deal with Netanyahu. They will be fair, even in Israel. They will be fair. Right now, it's a terrible situation. You still have hostages. It's an ugly situation, but it won't last forever. And she's doing the right thing. I mean, it wouldn't just be Israel. It could be any situation. She's trying to be fair. I still think the bigger situation, I know, Dave, you may not agree with me, but the bigger situation to me is Ukraine. If you noticed today,
I don't disagree.
Putin said,
I agree with you absolutely.
Okay, then I'm glad, because and then this is why I think Biden has held off, and that is Putin said that, and this one I do believe he said if the long-range missiles are allowed to strike Russian targets from Ukraine, then he will get involved with the West, and then who knows what will happen. So it'll be interesting because Biden's still on the job right now, Dave. So he has to decide.
Yes.
Because the rest of the NATO seems to say, go for it. So I think in the long run, this is much. I mean, look, the Middle East is a real problem, but it's been the same. I mean, I'm not trying to belittle it.
No,
it's the same problem. It's an absurd problem that should not be a problem. If there were atheists all over the Middle East, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd have this problem. But the key is Ukraine and Russia, because Russia is a nuclear superpower. They have more nuclear weapons than we do. They can miss and still. I mean, they can hit a few, and then the whole Earth will be destroyed. So this is the big situation. And I think Trump. I knew what Trump was going to say. He always says, I just want to stop the killing. He doesn't give a shit about the killing. He's right behind Putin. So just like the tariffs, he didn't really answer the question. He did come back with something that I'm sure somebody coached him on and said, you got to say, well, Biden kept the tariffs. And he's right in that sense. And she didn't answer that question. The Biden administration, and I certainly would have just said, yes, we understand. I understand that, and that's a good point. Yes, we did defend the tariffs, But right now, politically, it's difficult to do anything with that because we're in such a situation, and China is cheating on things. But we can't sustain these tariffs because it's a tax on our own people. And Trump had the gall to say he's from Wharton School, and yet he's saying that this is taking away billions of dollars. I mean, they said they are losing. They were losing a lot of money. It's not that they're losing money. We're the ones that are losing the money because we're paying the tariffs. We're the ones paying. It is a tax. And he was fighting that. And for some reason, I mean, I know that David Muir, he did, come back to it. But on those kind of issues, you really, even Kamala Harris probably should just say, let's just get this straight, Wharton boy. That is not, a tariff is not a tax on the Chinese. It's a tax on us. And while they may be unfair, you're still putting a lot of pressure on inflation. The very thing that you say is our fault is really your fault because everything on Amazon that's from China is having a tariff on it. So fuck you, she could have done that. And this is where I think, Dave, that you and I, we say, well, these people are the pundits. They know what they're talking about. I don't think they do sometimes. I think it's so simple. You just have to say he doesn't know what he's talking about. Now it's up to you, whether it's David Muir or whether it's Kamala Harris, to point out what a fucking tariff is and exactly what it means in simple terms, so the average person can understand.
Well, see, I think, Brian, you're giving the average person too much credit. I don't think they can understand.
That's part. Yeah, what they do understand is somebody saying she's a liar or. They're going to raise your taxes, or they're going to kill the dogs. You're right, and that means they're really that stupid.
The other thing that bothers me, too, is the idea of, which I find MAGA does all the time, of going against your own best interest for something else. So I could hear MAGA say, "Oh, I don't care. As long as you put some money, as long as you take some money from China, that's okay." Well, no, you're going to take it from you. Yeah. So. And that brings up an interesting point. I don't want to talk a lot about it tonight. I'd rather talk about it more on Sunday. But I don't think we're getting to all the real problems. There were two problems, I think. One is internal and one is worldwide that are going to destroy us. One is we have to get, if it's not too late, we have to do more for climate crisis. It's not a climate change. It's a climate crisis. And how many words were spent? You can't blame the... I mean, you could have jumped in, but it wasn't. And the one that I think is lurking everywhere is education in America. We are doing an abysmal job of that. And it's not the teachers. It's the outside pressures with book banning, with standardized testing. I was talking to my son today, we were talking about this, and he said, Dad, it's these kids come to college and all they've had is standardized testing. And if they're bright on their own, not from school. And I think that's true. So now I don't know if you have an advanced plan. What we do know, though, sometimes too, Brian, you don't need to know.
What's this thing? Bella, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm lost too. I was looking at traffic. Sea level official story ends there. Prove me wrong. I don't. Yeah. If you can help us out there a little bit. We know this. We know that Donald Trump's a stupid man. So obviously education didn't take hold in his part, okay? We know that J.D. Vance is a self-promoting phony. He got the wrong part of, the idea of education. We know that Kamala had to be a pretty successful student, right? At least in the goal. And I'll tell you what, a lot of MAGA, well, not a lot, some have disparaged her undergraduate degree from Howard. Look,
he's talking about 9/11.
Yeah. Okay. I've spent, Howard's place I go, and I've met a lot of students there, and I've met a few professors there, and Howard gives you a first-class education. I would put it up against Harvard. I really would. Harvard has more names.
Here's a good point. I think Ichabod is saying is that they have to leave them because
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, see,
I don't know. You know,
and to everybody, my take on economics is I don't really. I mean, I understand.
if that was the case, by the way, she should have said that. That would have been a good
Well-
reply because she's answering the question. He didn't answer any of the questions.
No, and see, but I'm wondering again. You could talk all you want about economics, but for these people, which I find interesting, well, I shouldn't say that. These people, yeah, I should. They're these people. For MAGA, I should identify them, which I did. They'll spend $199 on a pair of Trump sneakers, but then complain about their grocery bill. I don't think you have the right to do both, right? I just don't. Pick one or the other. It's like a joke, but I'm sure I don't complain. I never complain about the heat because I complain about the cold. You can't complain about both. Pick one. So you can have your $199 sneakers or the other. The other. Now, I think did a pretty good job of. Kamala did the job that she needed to do. Now it's up to us. And what do we do? What do we do next? What does she do next? And Brian, I think your warnings, which you've been sounding all along, are not warnings.
Because that's where it's going. I'm telling you right now, Dave. That's exactly where it's going. Because she's got the tide on her side, and that's the only way they got it.
All right, I agree with you, and it gets more. Now, there are not scared voices, but concerned voices, thinking that while we're all sitting here cheering that Kamala kicked his ass, that she just put herself in more physical danger. But that's
part of it. She understands that.
She understands that. But I do think. I will. Shit. I will. If okay, let's do it this way. If I had to answer, will there be multiple incidents of violence over this election? I would say yes. Now, what they are, where they are, how they happen, I do not know. Will they happen on voting day? Will they happen? The
big question is how will the forces, the state forces and the federal forces deal with it? If they do it, they do it. But it's how you deal with it is how it's going to end.
Well, again, the one difference that I keep saying, the one difference is the Democrats, Joe Biden, is the commander-in-chief.
Goddamn right, and they know that, and that bugs the shit out of them.
And Joe Biden, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's whatever, he will follow the Constitution. Okay, he will. So why is that so important? Because that brings in both sides of the military. Those who believe you follow the commander-in-chief, right? And those that believe you follow the Constitution. So in other words, if Trump were in office, it would only be those who believe you follow the commander-in-chief because he's not going to follow the Constitution. Right. And they're trying all kinds of intimidation. They're trying, everything they can. And we haven't even seen it yet. And
it's going to mainly be in those states like Georgia, Pennsylvania.
We'll run them. We're not going to run them tonight. We'll run them Sunday again. But there are 7 states now. But what was interesting, there were more. But now Trump has completely pulled out of Virginia, which I find interesting. He's conceded Virginia. She's up. And again, I'm the one who always says, don't believe polls, don't do this. But for whatever reason, he's pulled out, putting his forces other places. Some of them defensive. Right now, there's a feeling that he is somewhat suspect in Florida, and that there is a possibility of North Carolina. Georgia, it's another state. But what it's going to come down to, Brian, I think you named one and I'll name the other. It's really going to be up to how many minority votes don't go to Trump. And also, the women are going to decide this election.
Yes.
Black, white, red, yellow, orange. And
it'll either be the women or the 6 Supreme Court justices.
Well, you know what? I have no faith in the Supreme Court.
You better not, because Neil Gorsuch is...
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I posted something today, the memories from Facebook. I don't know, it was 11 years ago. So Thomas actually spoke for the first, I was going to come speak. and I got in the line to hear him. And he packed the place with his people, and only 13 members of the public got in National Archives to hear him to speak. Now, you tell me, that. So from that point on, he spent a decade not speaking. Thomas should have been gone long ago. Alito should be gone by now. They're not. And and again, it's hard to make that second jump. But I always try to tell people, you're not voting for just a president. You're voting for the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court can be more important than the president.
Right.
We should mention the fact that Trump chickened out of the second debate. Yes, I think he would do it if the conditions were favorable to him. And Brian, you said that tonight. If it were Sean Hannity, or even better, Jesse Waters, doing the debate. But it would be interesting. I think Kamala would kick his ass there.
Right. By the way, I'm going to ask you before we go, Dave.
Yeah, we're running. The clock is ticking down, people.
You saw it with Smartmatic. Do you think Smartmatic, being that they're going to go to court this month, they will try to settle? I don't know how much money Newsmax has. Can they pay out $750 million?
I would assume,
like Fox?
Brian, I'm speaking in some ignorance here, but no, because obviously the news organization, conservative news organization, that has the most money is Fox, because they not only have the money from their news side, they have the money from their other side. I would assume that Newsmax does not have that. And there are many things. Trump Social, or Truth Social, Trump's is in trouble. And you would think, it's interesting, you would think that they would learn their lesson, but I think, again, they're short-sighted too. Newsmax doesn't have to say what it says all the time, right? And still be there. And then you saw, you don't say, there are companies now striking back. Place your bets if the stream ends on time. I say won't. Oops, my pessimistic side is showing again. Are you talking about Brian talking too much? You couldn't be talking about me, right? You had to.
No, that would be a Trump lie.
Anyway, thanks everybody who
watched
thank you,
live,
Dave. And thank you everyone
see you
who's
Sunday.
Watching later. And a couple interesting protests I'll be able to report on. One tomorrow.
All right, and if I don't, I want you in the action there. I mean, even if it means you have to take a couple blows and a little bit of blood, I want you in the action here.
I will be. And this time my granddaughter didn't put any "Grandpop, you can't go" on me. So the first one is tomorrow. There's a report that there'll be Palestinian protests at universities here in Washington, D.C. And then the next day is a given. They're doing a transgender march against 2025, Project 2025. So maybe I'll have some stuff. Maybe even get a couple interviews or something. Who knows? All right, Brian.
All right.
Bye.
All right. See you, everybody.